we're all, on the hunt for the same thing, a good life.
Absolutely.
That universal feeling of being settled, purposeful, and just genuinely happy.
Hmm.
But the frustrating irony, though, is that the conditions for that good life are scientifically and philosophically surprisingly simple.
They really are. Yet humans, we are absolute experts at taking that simplicity
And
and
just twisting it into this complicated mess of distraction and confusion.
it's true. We know the fundamental ingredients for lasting well-being.
Mm,
I mean, psychologically, we can list the components.
right.
But our pursuit of them is almost immediately derailed by two things. Our own tendency to mistake symbols for substance.
And the loud, confusing scripts handed to us by society.
Exactly.
And that's the core tension we are tackling today.
Hmm.
In this deep dive, we pulled together source material that provides this dual framework for the quest, drawing from both foundational psychology and classical philosophy.
Well, our mission is really to cut through that manufactured complexity.
We want to help you unpack the difference between a genuine human need and, a temporary societal want.
And to explore the objective criteria for a life of lasting well-being, moving past all those surface desires that just clutter up every decision.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start at the absolute bottom floor, the psychological foundation.
Right.
The sources begin with Maslow's basic framework, which gives us a list of the necessary conditions, the preconditions, really for a life that can even attempt to be good.
And he calls the first three levels the deficiency needs.
The deficiency needs.
These are the absolute non-negotiables, the things that, when they're missing, they become the only thing you can think about.
So what are they?
Well, the base layer is physiological.
Mm.
Air, food, water, clothing, shelter, sleep. If these are unmet, your mind just literally cannot function optimally.
Okay.
Then you move up to safety, security, health, a lack of physical danger.
And the key concept here, the reason they're called deficiency needs, is that they're primarily noticed when they're absent.
Exactly. The goal of meeting a deficiency need isn't to achieve happiness. It's just to stop the pain.
When you're starving, the goal is food. When you're lonely, the goal is connection. Simple as that.
Precisely. And once you've stopped the pain and secured safety, the next deficiency need is love and belonging.
The social piece.
The social acceptance piece, the need to love, to be loved, and to feel like you're part of a community. These three layers, physical, safety, and social, are really just the requirements for human maintenance.
Right. You have to fulfill them just to be whole enough to even start thinking about fulfillment.
Yes.
But as the sources point out, the journey doesn't stop once you've got food, shelter, and a few good friends.
No, that takes us to the next crucial level, the growth needs.
Right.
This is where true human flourishing begins. This layer involves what Maslow called metamotivation.
Metamotivation.
Yeah, the need to learn and grow,
Hmm.
to feel that life has purpose and meaning and value,
So a sense of achievement, self-esteem.
and ultimately self-actualization, that constant push to realize your full potential, to become the best version of yourself, sometimes even transcending your current situation entirely.
When you see this hierarchy laid out, it looks so refreshingly simple.
It does.
But this is where the simplicity ends. This is where human ingenuity for self-sabotage kicks in.
It is.
Because if you look closely at that definitive list of needs, there are two huge omnipresent topics that consume our modern lives, yet are entirely absent from the list.
That's right. The two classic complex symbols that drive so much anxiety and distress,
Yeah.
money and sex.
They're not on the list?
Not explicitly, no. Yet we spend massive amounts of time chasing them as if they were the ultimate sources of sustenance or security.
So let's focus on money first, because it illustrates this symbolic trap perfectly. Money is it's a medium of exchange. It's metal, paper.
Or numbers on a ledger.
Exactly. It has no inherent value, yet we imbue it with this immense, almost spiritual power.
We do that because money acts as a proxy for nearly all the deficiency needs we just discussed.
How so?
Well, it symbolizes security, achievement, social approval. If you have enough money, you feel safe.
Right.
That's the safety need.
Okay.
If you earn a high income, you feel successful. That's the esteem need. But the sources are so insistent on this. Money is merely a means to an end.
A tool.
It's the tool you use to satisfy the actual needs. The food, the shelter, access to education. It is not the end goal itself.
That distinction is fascinating, but here's my point of friction with the material. If 90% of our waking adult life is spent pursuing that means, working to acquire more of that symbolic proxy, doesn't it functionally become the end goal?
Yeah.
How do the sources suggest we mentally reframe that reality?
That's a critical question. And the answer they give lies in self-interrogation. If you are pursuing money, you have to ask why.
Okay.
If the answer is to feel safe, then the goal isn't the number in the bank. The goal is the feeling of safety. The sources suggest we detoxify money's influence by defining the real need it serves.
Which strips the symbol of its overwhelming power.
Exactly. If you just chase the symbol, the next zero in the bank account, you never arrive. Because the underlying anxiety, that feeling of insufficiency, it has been addressed.
And then we move to sex, which the source material calls, and I love this, possibly the most complex subject in the entire human experience.
It really is. I mean, it is a physical need, of course, but that's just the starting point.
It's just the beginning.
It immediately crosses over into deep sociology, psychology, intimacy, profound emotional connection. For some people, it connects to the need for belonging and love. For others, it's about achievement or power.
It's a whole spectrum.
A complex spectrum of beliefs, attitudes, emotions, and the sheer weight of social conditioning and expectation placed on this one area just guarantees confusion.
So these two examples, money and sex, they illustrate the core problem of the human condition.
They do.
Without carefully examining these complex symbols, you cannot possibly know the difference between a want and a genuine need.
You can't distinguish your personal internal needs from the social conditioning you just soaked up.
And you can't determine if your goals are fueled by a desire for growth or just the deep-seated fear of deficiency.
And when that examination fails, our emotions feel like truth, and reality often becomes, as the source says, the movie playing in your head.
We're operating on scripts we haven't even reviewed, mistaking symbolic desires for core necessities.
And that state of constant confusion is, according to the sources, simply not conducive to living a good life, because you are always chasing the wrong target.
And this confusion over what to chase naturally transitions us out of basic psychological maintenance,
And into the realm of ultimate purpose.
which takes us beyond Maslow and into Aristotle and the ultimate philosophical definition of a flourishing life, eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia. It's so often translated as happiness, but it's so much deeper than that.
Right, it's not just a feeling.
No. Aristotle defined it as the highest good, not a passing emotion, but well-being experienced over the course of an entire successful lifetime. It's the aim toward which all human action should be directed.
And he established some really rigorous criteria for this. He said it needed 3 specific attributes. First, it must be desirable in itself.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Second, it must not be desirable for the sake of some other good.
Okay.
And third, all other goods, like health, wealth, virtue, or knowledge, must be desirable for its sake.
Wow. Okay, think about the implications of those last 2 points. If you are only chasing wealth so you can buy freedom,
Then wealth is not the highest good. Freedom is.
or if you're chasing fame so you can feel validated, fame isn't the highest good. Validation is.
Exactly. That sets a remarkably high bar that immediately discounts nearly every common modern status symbol.
Instant celebrity fails this test.
Fails the test.
Passive income fails this test.
They're almost always desirable for the sake of something else. Security, validation, freedom. Eudaimonia has to be the ultimate anchor.
The final stop.
It forces you to look inward and ask what you were ultimately trying to achieve. But Aristotle was also clear. Those 3 criteria were necessary, but not sufficient.
There was a 4th one,
There was a crucial 4th requirement that often surprises people.
and that requirement is good fortune.
Good fortune, yes. You can dedicate your life to reason, to virtue, to practical wisdom, but unfortunate circumstances, a natural disaster, illness, political upheaval, can still make a life difficult or miserable.
Which suggests that even the best laid plans are partially vulnerable to the caprice of fate.
And that criterion often feels, jarring. It sounds passive, as if external luck controls our ultimate ability to flourish.
Well, yeah, if a rational, virtuous life requires external luck, doesn't that inherently contradict the idea of complete self-control and agency?
It seems to. But this is where the sources connect that idea back to agency, making it dynamic rather than fatalistic.
So it's not just about sitting back and waiting for luck.
Not at all. While true good fortune is external, the likelihood of fortunate circumstances is exponentially increased by living well, being prepared, and cultivating deep, robust relationships.
They include that great quote from Joe Ricketts, "The harder you work, the luckier you get."
Yes. It reinforces the Aristotelian concept that a good life is both the process, the striving, the constant rational choices, and the result, the cumulative flourishing over decades.
So everything we seek is sought with this end goal in mind, where happiness is the outcome of living a rational and virtuous life guided by reason and practical experience.
Right, it really reframes happiness. It's not a temporary rush, it's a structural outcome.
And that brings us to the ultimate power of this philosophical view. Bad luck can make your life difficult, painful, or miserable, but no situation or external circumstances can truly rob your life of dignity and meaning.
Unless you actively allow it to happen.
Which means the ultimate control over the meaning of your existence rests internally, regardless of whatever chaos is happening outside.
So we have the psychological floor, Maslow.
And the philosophical ceiling, Aristotle. We know what genuine needs look like, and we know what ultimate flourishing requires. But if this foundation is so solid, why do virtually all the things you think will make you happy, the material goals, the titles, the possessions, why do they turn out to be insufficient or even just wrong?
And this is where the source material points a very sharp finger at the conflicting stories we get from society.
The conflict is profoundly intense. On the one hand, society glorifies the chase, the relentless pursuit of wealth, power, fame, maximum achievement.
Everything is marketed as something you have to acquire to be whole.
But on the other hand, the cultural backlash simultaneously promotes this quiet, almost countercultural happiness. Simplicity, gratitude, living in the moment.
Finding contentment with less. We're told to hustle constantly, and then we're told that hustling is the root of all anxiety. It's a total contradiction.
And that confusion, that intellectual dissonance, it turns happiness into something you have to buy or achieve, an objective to be checked off.
An external metric, yeah.
Rather than something that is found or cultivated internally through reason and virtue, it creates this endless loop of striving and dissatisfaction.
It does.
I remember when I spent 6 months obsessively chasing a specific job title, thinking that particular validation would finally make me feel like an adult who had, arrived. And I got the title. The feeling lasted about 3 hours.
Right.
I realized I had been chasing a social script, not an actual need. The job was fine, but the feeling of arrival was totally absent.
And that is a perfect illustration of what the sources call the story you have been told.
The story you've been told.
Yeah. Your goals, that specific financial milestone, the type of family, the house, the recognition you crave, they did not form in a vacuum.
Yeah.
They were heavily influenced by media, your upbringing, other people's definitions of success. And many of these are surface distractions. They look like answers, but they actually pull you away from genuine, sustainable well-being by forcing you to chase an external symbol.
So this is where the deep dive challenges you directly. Right now, reflect on your current major life goals. Take the top 3 things you believe will lead to happiness. Now sort them. Are they based on whether they genuinely reflect your deeply held values and needs, or did you just absorb them from the collective social narrative, from that movie playing in your head?
And the key insight here is that these common ideals, the prestigious job, the expensive car, they aren't inherently evil or wrong.
Of course not.
But they so frequently lead to disappointment because they operate only on that deficiency needs level providing status or security, while ignoring the crucial growth needs.
The need for authentic connection, real purpose, and living genuinely.
You simply cannot define a good life by following someone else's script or achieving someone else's proxy goals.
So what's the solution?
The sources conclude this segment by stressing that escaping the script requires profound self-examination. It requires questioning every assumption, letting go of those inherited fantasies of what life should look like.
And having the courage to face uncomfortable truths about what you really value and need.
And by engaging in that constant, active process of self-alignment, you begin to build a life that is truly yours.
A life aligned with your unique values.
And one that results not in fleeting happiness, but in the lasting outcome of feeling profoundly alive, deeply at peace, and genuinely fulfilled.
And that brings us to the core synthesis of this deep dive. The path to a good life, it really involves stripping away the complexity.
The symbolic chase for money, the confusion of social conditioning.
To focus on the foundational needs, guided by reason and virtue, and always aimed at authentic, lifelong flourishing.
And the transformation required to start operating this way is immediate, because the power of choice rests with you today. It highlights the absolute power of individual agency.
Right. As the source quotes an AA member, "My life today is what I make of it today."
It's so powerful.
The sources promise a total transformation, comparing it to a butterfly breaking free of its cocoon, noting that we are already holding the tools we need to begin.
So here's the final provocative thought for you to chew on. If the essential tools needed to break free are reason, virtue, and absolute honesty about your goals, which of those three do you need to pick up first right now to start building that authentic life today?